Hey Padawans, happy Monday morning. I did a review on Happy Gilmore 2. I don't know if anybody over here saw it. Some did. But in the review, the movie review, I talk about working for Cobra Golf. And I wanted to sort of expand more on that job because I thought it was a very interesting job that I had. Uh, Now, I had many different jobs, many different work, a lot of labor. When I was younger, I did a lot of hard work. This was one of them. Now, what you see here is my this guy was my boss. He was in charge of the facility, uh, which was in Kearney Mesa. Now they have moved to Carlsbad, California. So this was my boss, Tom Crow, an Australian amateur golfer, moved to Kearney Mesa, California, to start Cobra Golf. Crow was an Australian amateur champion and won over 20 club championships, including at Royal Melbourne, Kingston Heath, and Royal Sydney. Crow set out to make great clubs at a fair price and claimed that the product and tour presence was essential to success, is the people that really made a difference. So I worked for Cobra Golf for a couple of years, and I just want to talk about some of the details because I have some really bad memories about working there, but I also learned a lot about people, and I would say having 20 different jobs in your lifetime, that grants you sort of a superpower. I know that a lot of people have never worked over here in this area of YouTube, in this community. Most people have never worked, never had a job. So I want to discuss a little bit of this work. So it's just sort of a little interesting story. And it was just a couple of years in my life, but it felt pretty long. So I was working with this company, this temp, the temp agencies. I think the name of the company was Remedy Temporary Agency. And they send me to, they call you, It's like, hey, do you want to work here? You want to work there? And one day they call and say, you want to work for a Cobra Golf? You're going to be making golf clubs. I'm like, what? Like, she's like, I don't know anything about golf, And like, no, it doesn't matter. They'll train you and, you just go over there and show up. I don't know, like show up on Monday to work. So it was, I worked from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., right? And this is the reason I'm not a morning person anymore. I had to get up at 4 a.m, carpool with a guy that would listen to James Brown in his car very, very loud at 4 a.m, because we carpool, right? And it was like an hour drive from the South Bay to Mira Mesa. Well, maybe 50 minutes. But he would jam every morning to James Brown, really loud in the car while I'm trying to sleep. And I was carpooling with him, I did give him gas money. So we show up to work at 5 a.m, and they had a basketball court outside. They had the hoops outside. And everybody start playing basketball before they start work. Can you believe that? I mean, just outside the factory, the facility there in Kearney Mesa, it's just inside you have, where we're making the golf clubs, and outside there's this court. And I guess the guy just wanted to, I was just hanging out. I'm not a good basketball player. So yeah, this is what we did before starting our shift at 6 a.m. So my position was I guess, officially was, I was a graphite cutter. Okay. And my job as a graphite cutter was show up to work, grab these rolls of graphite, very heavy. These rolls were about 100 pounds, 150, and they were thick, thick paper. Like on one side they had like the brown paper, and on the other side they had the graphite. It's sort of like the surface is rough, sort of like grayish silver, and it's just it's a metal. It's a I mean, you guys know graphite is, right? And what we were doing is we were making shafts with this graphite paper. I wouldn't really call it paper. I would call it more of a layer, And so they use this graphite to make the woods and the irons. And my job was to show up, grab one of these heavy rolls of graphite, lay it on a table, right? And my job was to cut slice pieces, like big, very large pieces of this graphite. And I remember, I think it was about 4 feet. I think it was 4 by 4, but you had to do it in an angle, okay? Like a 45-degree angle, and you had to do it by hand. Now, I know they don't do that anymore. They're doing 3D printing now. A lot of these are doing 3D printing, and it's all machinery now, I think. I don't believe they're still doing it by hand, but I could be wrong. So I would get this blade, okay, this professional grade blade, and I would use my right arm. And this is what I would do all day long. Basically just cut, okay? You would cut with a ruler. You cut, you pull out the graphite paper, you cut one, and then you move it over, and then you cut again, and you cut again, and you keep cutting for 4 hours until you get a break. Okay, and you're using your right hand all day long. And once you have a good pile, I think I remember it was like 50 or 100 sheets of this stuff. You would lay them there next to you, and then they would take them to the other room, and that's where they would put them in the machine and make the shaft, for these irons, and what else were they doing? I'm trying to remember what else they were doing with it. They had these. I think they were doing all kinds of things. Okay, all kinds of things. They had the drivers, the putters, complete sets, fair, whatever. They did everything. And I'm not saying that Cobra Golf is the best in the world or anything. It's it's just an average. But yeah, so I worked there, and my job was, like I said, it was graphite cutter, and I did that for. And I was working for the temporary agency, but eventually, he came up. He came over. We talked a lot, and he really liked me. He really liked me, and he said, "I know you work for the temporary agency, right? Because when you're working for the temporary agency, you're not really working for like the company, right?" But Tom, actually, before I quit, he came up to me and he says, "Don't quit. We want to hire you full time. We're gonna give you benefits and a raise and stuff. So don't leave. You won't be part of the temporary agency, the Remedy temporary. Because when you work for a Remedy temporary agency, they take like $3 out of your hour. So if I was making like $5 an hour, this was in the 90s, okay? If I was making $5 an hour, they were paying Cobra Golf like $8 an hour, okay? So because they, I guess they take their fee. I know it's not fair. But Tom was really a nice guy. He was always wearing like shorts and like a t-shirt. And he would go outside and play basketball with us. I was just never good at basketball, okay? And then I remember, the food truck would come around, and But my experience here, and this is the reason I kind of want to talk about it, I have real life experience, and most of the people that I work with were illegal. That's why I want to talk about this. Sort of political, because I worked with illegal immigrants. Most of the guys that were working there were, from Latin America, Mexico. I would say like 70% of the employees at Cobra Golf, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, okay? I don't know if they do that anymore, but most of the employees that were doing the hard labor, the hand work, were illegal. And I spoke English, and I was legal and everything, so maybe that's why they liked me a little bit better. And I was very productive. I would work really hard. I would never make a mistake. I would make a perfect cut, in the perfect angle. And I never got injured, never got cut. And I didn't even wear gloves, okay? I know some people say you got to wear gloves. I did wear eye protection. You had to wear some eye protection. Anyway, my experience at Cobra Golf was, the only letdown was it really messed up my neck and my shoulder, okay? Because imagine doing that every day, okay? 5 times a week for 8 hours, and it's not good for your body. So that's one of the reasons I am screwed up, and that's just one of many dozens of jobs that I had doing labor work. So I have experience working with illegal aliens. And a lot of people talk a lot of big smack over here, like, oh, I'm trying to help protect it, I don't want anybody to be deported, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the most outspoken people, in support of this have never worked in their lifetime. They don't have real life experience. They never had a job in manual labor. They never done construction, anything like that. They have privilege, and they're the ones that talk the most, politically about this issue. Illegal immigrants working in California, which the only reason I have an issue is I think everybody should be legal. Everybody should do it properly. Anyway, that's my story. Leave me a comment. Maybe I'll get into golf. I don't know. I mean, it seems like I think I could be like Happy Gilmore. I think I really have the talent to be a good golf player, but I just never got it, to the course. But I could be really good at it. Maybe I just need a loan, a $20,000 loan from you guys, to buy all the equipment. That's about how much you need, about $20,000. I'm just messing with you. So have a great Monday, and may the force be with you. Bye.